Welcome back to the Fishing Doctor's Adventures. Today we're gearing up for Cascade Lake. My brother and I have been fishing off here for the past 3 days now and I've done really well. I'm not sure about today. I came out about 2 p.m., spent some time this morning with the family. But now I thought, since guys have been asking how we're catching fish, I'll put a video together on how you can find the perch and catch them if you find yourself out on this body of water. At the current moment, people are coming in from all over Canada and the ice belt to fish this lake for a once-in-a-life opportunity to catch a 2-pound perch. They're in here, and we got a few over 2 pounds while we're here, and I'm sure you'll see those in other videos. But I want to help you guys out to see what we're doing, and we'll help you put more fish on the ice. Number one thing, you're in Idaho, you're allowed 5 lines per person. So usually we put in 4 set lines and 1 jigging line for ourselves. Quite often the 4 set lines are going off so frequently we don't even get our own rod in. In that case, you can put an extra line in and just run the 5 set lines, and that works too. So what are we doing for our set lines? Mostly we're using these jaw jackers. They're made by a guy in Idaho, and they work great on these perch in Cascade Lake. There are other types of auto hook setting devices which would work as well, but this is what we use, and we run jaw jackers, and it works really well for us. Usually how I set it up is, for perch, I set it on the medium setting for the rod holder, and I set it at number 4 because we're usually using rods that are 26 to 28 inches long for perch. And the action that you want on the perch rod is usually medium, light, medium, or you can use the jaw jacker rods like this one. This is a jaw jacker. It's made IM7 graphite blank rod, and they're pretty sturdy and made for these jaw jackers so you don't end up breaking some of their lighter rod. And the one that's recommended for perch is this 29-inch one. They have several sizes. I have a few that you can use, for trout and bigger fish like pike. Those are longer lengths and stiffer rods. Use the lighter one for the perch so it doesn't rip their head off when it sets the hook. And what we're using for other terminal tackle, we have the Pflueger reels and we have various other Shimano reels. They'll all work. We usually spool them with like 6 to 8 pound line, micro ice line, and then we put a small tiny swivel on, and we run about 4 pound fluorocarbon leader material. That's usually good enough for the fish in here because you will run into some bigger trout and some bigger perch that you don't want to break off. So I wouldn't run 2 pound fluorocarbon here on this lake because you'll probably end up snapping off a few big fish and you'll end up crying about those on the way home. What is one of the best gear options is these tungsten jigs. So I was fortunate to get a bunch from Backcountry Tackle, and he actually gave me some to give away. So I'm going to give some away on this video. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video, and comment below. The people who comment below, I'll include in a drawing after this video reaches about, 2,000 to 3,000 views, and we'll give some away. Okay, so tungsten jigs. If you haven't ever used tungsten jigs before, they're very small. I'll give you a look here. They're very small, like this. They come in all different shapes and sizes, like that. And the great thing about tungsten jigs is in Cascade Lake, sometimes you're fishing deeper water. Sometimes they're up on the shelf in like 10 to 13, 15 feet of water, but sometimes you're out off the drop off in 20 to 30 feet of water. Well, these little jigs are 40% heavier than lead, so you can really feel them. Even though they're so tiny, you can really feel them on your line. You know when the jig is hitting the bottom, and it makes it much easier to set the line on the jaw jacker when you're going around, because you have to do it a lot some days when the fish are really biting. And then how you rig it is, you're allowed several hooks on the line, but we usually run 2 jigs, one on the bottom and one about 12 to 18 inch or even 2 feet up. The fish will come up off the bottom and sometimes favor that higher jig. So you can space them out pretty big. And the colors that we like the best out here are like the Fire Tiger or greens or this pink color or red. Those all work really well because a lot of times they're feeding on their own perch. So that's, green and Fire Tiger, that'll work good for that presentation. And the pinks and reds, because they do feed pretty heavily on these bloodworms or the mayfly larvae, different things that have that kind of coloration. Once you have these jigs baited up, what do we use? Everyone's asking me, what are we using for bait? night crawlers. Canadian night crawlers. You can pick them up at the gas stations anywhere here around in Idaho. And we just go and we grab one of those night crawlers from the container. And we only use about 1/2 inch piece on these small tungsten jigs because you don't want to over bait the hook so that the fish doesn't get hooked. So you just break off about 1/2 inch of the worm. That's a tough one. And you thread it onto the hook so that it kind of is just sitting nicely on the hook, and so that the hook is showing still widely open so that the fish, when he bites it and the jaw jacker goes off, it'll get hooked. Just like that. See the bait's hanging from the hook? And you want the hook to sit horizontally, so you make sure you set it on the eyelet so that the hook is sitting like that, okay? We'll bait the top hook as well and get down to business. Now, the next thing you might like to do, or to have when you're out here to increase your odds, is having one of these flasher units. We always run Markhams, but there's also Vexilars and Humminbirds. Those are probably the 3 best options if you're going to be buying a flasher. And if you ice fish a lot, this thing you can't live without it. I have trouble fishing with it now, without it now, because it's so important for me on the ice season, and it's how I find a lot of fish. Now the next thing is a bell, and that's what we use when we put the rod down. Now I set this, and the key is I usually put the bottom hook about 8 inches to 1 foot off the bottom. And when we get down to the bottom, I'll show you how I set the jaw jacker up. So you put your rod, jaw jacker rod, in the handle. I just can reel in the line here till I see my hooks come up off the bottom, with the bottom one about 1 foot off the bottom. And then I put the little loop that you have already on your rod from jaw jacker through that hammer or trigger device, put the trigger up. And usually what I do for this trigger, I don't want it just falling down, it's too loose. For these little baits, you want to make sure the perch actually grabs it before they get hooked. So I tighten up the wing nut, turn it towards yourself a couple turns, so that you actually have to push that down a little bit. If you're not getting enough strikes, you can loosen that up a bit if they're biting really lightly. So there, your setup is done. Then I just put the bell on the middle of the rod. So if you put it on the tip, sometimes it goes flying. Middle of the rod, when it goes off, you'll be able to hear it, because when you have a bunch of jaw jackers set up, you'll hear a bell ring, but then everything stops. You're looking around trying to figure out which one it was. Well, if the bell's on the rod and it keeps jerking, it'll keep ringing, you'll find the rod quicker, and you have to get to it fast, because these fish do get off the hook if you don't get there, ASAP. So there we go. That one's set. I'm all set and geared up. That's exactly what we do for our jaw jacker fishing on Cascade Lake, and that really helps us catch a lot of fish. Now, if your rods aren't getting hit, usually what I'll do is I'll fish structures, and I'll drill a line of holes, and I'll put the jaw jackers in depths, say if we're up shallow in 10 to 13 feet of water, if we're fishing a break in like 15 to 30 feet of water. And as soon as one of them is getting hit more than the rest, I'll drill holes along that same contour, and I'll move all the jaw jackers into that same line, and usually you'll end up catching more fish if you do that. That's just how we key in on the fish in Cascade Lake. Now, I have one more line I can use with my jigging rod, and what I usually use is perch imitation lures, like small Rapala shad wraps or Rapala slab wraps. We've caught fish on those. Also little soft jigs that look like perch. Some are made by Normark and other companies like Mimic Minnows from Northland Tackle. They all seem to work pretty well. Or you can use spoons, even Len Thompson spoons, Castmasters, all these different types of spoon lures will work as well. But when the fish are, not hitting well and they're really subtle, they seem to tend to like the smaller presentation, smaller jigs, and you can even jig with the small tungsten lure if you're not having luck on the bigger attracting lures. Okay, so let's go give it a try. I'll be fishing my jigging rod, and I don't know if anything's gonna happen here. I just talked to some guys going off the ice. They said it was pretty slow. They only caught 3 all day, so I'm not having high hopes, but I'll move these jaw jackers around until I see if I can get into some action and put some big fish on the ice for this video. But if not, at least you know what to do to give yourself the best case scenario and catch a big fish here on Cascade Lake. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and put the comments in the below. Tell me if you want some of that backcountry tackle tungsten, and we'll choose a winner. One thing I didn't mention was
that I spread the jaw jackers out quite a bit by like 30 to 50 feet, which requires some running, but it really helps you cover water. Some guys will spread them out only 20 feet apart with 5 lines, which really doesn't cover much ground. And I forgot to mention, I find the structure on this lake by downloading the Navionics app. It is really helpful and will help you get on the fish and find the river channel and all the structure that you need to know on this lake.
Well, I went from almost being skunked there to catching these in a matter of a few minutes. Jaw jackers went off, bam, 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 and I was just setting it up and I caught this nice big one. Sometimes sticking it out here into the evening can pay off right at the end. You never know. Seems to be a bit of a late evening bite. Got this one on the Len Thompson Lemon Flame, my favorite color. The little piece of nightcrawler, that's number 7. Beautiful perch. Got a decent one here, I think. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that, we're getting them here. Almost dark. That's on that green Gamakatsu hook. And I had a piece of worm on there. Look at that. Fat jumbo perch. Well, that's it for gearing up for Cascade. As you can see, the jaw jackers are a big help. I caught one on my hand rod and the other 4 were caught on the jaw jackers. Also lost a few today, lost a big one on the way up, but that's how it goes. Hey, so you can definitely do Cascade on foot, as I just walked out, you know, from shore here near Poison Creek and walked out to one of the drops. Gave it a try. Nothing was really happening there. I don't know if it was because of the time of day or because of the location. So I moved back off the drop further into the kind of the basin of the lake where it looked like there was some structure, a river channel moving through, and connected with a few fish tonight. So hey, it wasn't all for loss. There are fish out here and had some fun. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. Till next year. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends so that other people can get out here and be successful as well. Thanks for watching.